that it's okay to fail. um, and not necessarily take that in a negative way. More so, just approach it in a different way. The 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 opportunity to learn through trial and error has been a great experience.
Main Street businesses are struggling as they face challenges nothing like we've seen before. You're listening to the Behind Main Street podcast. Let's learn from real-world Main Street entrepreneurs, pick their brains, and learn their secrets to navigate, persevere, and overcome all the modern obstacles they face every day. Get ready to peek behind the stories, the struggles, and strategies of today's Main Street entrepreneurs. Welcome to the Behind Main Street podcast. Here's your host, Chris J. Cardona.
Great day, everyone. Welcome to the show. Whether it's your first time listening or an avid follower, thank you so much for joining us. Show notes can be found at www.behindmainstreet.com. But before we get started, I would like to thank the sponsor for this episode.
Today's episode is brought to you by Thinkin' Local, a fundraising and giving-based marketing platform whose mission is to connect local Main Street businesses who care about making an impact in the local community with schools and nonprofits who believe in supporting their local businesses. Find out more by visiting local.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much. For today's episode, I'm super excited to interview Louis Ramirez, an entrepreneur, a fellow marketer, and a restaurant technology consultant where he specializes in cloud-based technology and digital payment solutions to bring more customers for the hospitality and restaurant industry. His key goal is to turn more first-time guests into regular repeat business. Louis, are you ready to take us behind the curtains and dig into your story?
Yes, Chris, thank you so much for inviting me here to be a guest with Behind Main Street. Excited to share any knowledge that I can give the audience for any insights. Definitely.
Fantastic.
Bring out the shovels. Let's dig for gold.
Well, Louis, I've given our listeners a little bit of a sneak peek of who you are. Why don't you tell them a little bit more about yourself and what it is that you do?
Definitely. Chris, really simply stated, I am in the sales industry. And as an entrepreneur, basically I work with my company called Bring More Clients. And I'm focused on helping businesses, specifically in the restaurant hospitality industry, find ways to actually engage and transact more with customers, bringing them through an online portal into the restaurant, and then making it more efficient for a restaurant inside to run their operations. I really do enjoy just sharing the knowledge, the insights with restaurant owners. A lot of times they're way too busy to kind of research. And what I do is I bring those insights to them. They kind of assess what's made available to them in today's technology. And then they make a decision if it's a good fit for them at this time.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. Maybe you can tell us a little bit of a little bit of something interesting that your family and friends would say about you as a person.
Interesting. I did ask that same question today to my son. I said, son, I'm going to be on this amazing podcast. And I'm curious because sometimes I don't want to be the one to answer it. I want him to tell me. So what he said is, Dad, look, you know what? You're really good at solving puzzles. And so what we related back to is that many a times we could be in a situation and I can kind of give them the answer before it comes up. I'll give you an example. I mean, something that's really simple for everyday people is obviously watching a movie. You kind of take a look at a movie, look at the scenes, and you kind of anticipate what's going to basically be the result. And sometimes he gets shocked in that situation. But I can actually relate to that in real life. A lot of times, experience and knowing, let's say, your industry can really help you provide that type of insight of what's up and coming next to individuals. So solving puzzles is basically what I would answer on that.
Gotcha. Well, how would you describe your personal mission in life?
Yeah. So obviously, I'm up in the 50s now. So during the different decades, I would say there was different missions, right? During different phases. At this point, basically, for me, it's more collaboration with my community and finding ways to actually work together and get a positive outcome for just other people as well as myself. So not thinking of that in a selfish way, but by having collaborations, I'm actually able to help others, leaving them in a better place, which eventually obviously helps me and grow my business. My mission,
Absolutely.
yeah, my mission is just basically leave things better than the way I found them.
Fantastic. Fantastic. What would you say that people misunderstand about you the most?
I would say that exactly would be perhaps in the industry I'm in, which is actually working with business owners. There's been a lot of times when people have come and provided them with product or service, and they've been burnt, right? So, based on that fact that they've had that experience, when I first come in and actually meet them, they misunderstand the fact that I'm actually there to help them. What's odd about the way of consulting works sometimes in the industry I'm in, when you come in and actually share a lot of insights, the question to them is, okay, well then, what are you getting in return? What's in it for you? Because it sounds too good to be true. So in regards to that, I would think that basically they misunderstand my intentions or the outcome that they will get because sometimes it just seems too good to be true. I can elaborate a little bit more on that, maybe as the podcast continues, or if you'd like, I can jump on that now.
Yeah, we can elaborate on it a little bit more later once I get into more of your entrepreneurial questions. I'll definitely ask you more about that to unpack that a little bit more for our listeners.
Okay,
My next question is: if there was one thing that Luis Ramirez values most in life, what would that be?
I would say time. I do value time and being present. At the moment, a lot of times with such a fast moving lifestyle that we all live, we tend to be physically there, but maybe not emotionally tied or completely attentive to the current event that's taking place. And so taking the time to kind of slow down sometimes, I would say time.
Gotcha, gotcha. Well, speaking of being present, right? A lot of us think about the legacy that we'll leave, when we pass away, years into the future. Have you had any thoughts about the short-term impact within 5 years that you and your business plan to have or are going to have?
Yeah, I kind of made a simple reference to that. It's definitely about leaving things better than the way I found them. Um, you know, in small business, a lot of times it's a family that's obviously running the business, not necessarily a company in a sense like a corporation type. So it's SMB. So it's a lot of families that are being impacted in regards to whatever's happening in the economy or the market. So if I was to come in and be able to help them just make it a little bit better, the impact could be just 1% better, but it's on a projection to continue to increase to a better position, maybe 10%, 30%, which could be a very large uh, number for them towards the end of the year. So, again, my whole focus is just making that 1% better in any business that can lead them in the right direction as they continue to project year over year.
Gotcha, gotcha. I'm curious. So tomorrow you wake up Sunday, you had $100 million in your bank account.
Yeah,
What would you spend it on?
good question. I would take care of obviously my personal liabilities, obviously, right? Because you can get peace of mind in regards to taking care of a few things like family members, kind of putting them in a better position. I would definitely spend into investing, making sure that I put money into things that can actually grow. And then the third thing would be back into my family, which would be pastime, you know, having some memories. Because obviously, in the end, that's really all you take away is the memories. And I think that that would be my golden nugget would be finding more ways to actually enjoy life and spend time with them. But I would invest also in my business because I it's something that I don't think I'll ever let go of. Regardless if I had a lot of money, it's always going to be something I'm going to do in my life is work. I just enjoy it.
Awesome, awesome. That's very, very fascinating. I think a lot of us, when we finally, it takes us a while to figure out exactly what it is that we want to do. I know it's a big thing that everybody says, like, especially everybody that read into the speeches that Steve Jobs did, right? Like finding your passion and you'll never work a day in your life and stuff like that. But the reality is, it takes you a while to figure out what exactly that is. I mean, a lot of the things that you do in life sort of leads you to where you are today. um but you don't realize that there's like the incremental increases or the incremental experiences that you have, or those memories that you've had, in prior years, sort of hones that passion that makes you realize this is exactly what you like to do. And for you, it's really like this, since I've met you, since I've talked to you, there's a lot of this, the consultant part of what you do. I think it is what you love the most, and being able to bring out the best solutions, like you mentioned earlier, puzzle solving, problem solving for these business owners, really get you up during, your work day, basically.
Yeah, definitely, definitely does. To elaborate on what you're saying, obviously, to be able to actually come in and, like I said, provide some kind of guidance, and the products and services that I offer aren't always the right fit for business, but it's in that discovery process of sitting down, getting the chance to learn exactly what is this business going through. I mean, a box looks like a box. It has four corners. Hence, when you walk in that box, there could be different variations of what's going on inside that particular business. And to be able to listen to that, business owner, and find out sometimes what really is going on, personal, or you know, worker environment, or just other aspects of a business, and be able to say, you know what, maybe it's not the right time for you right now, but here's what's available, and here's how to progress to get ready for this. One of the biggest questions I ask business owners sometimes is, what is your exit strategy? What are you looking at in regards to, like, exiting? Are you looking to sell the business, or are you looking to pass it on? That can make a big decision for them as to whether product A or product B is going to be the right fit for them.
Fantastic. Well, going back to your childhood, what was that like growing up?
So as a young man, I had to take ESL, basically English as a second language. I'm first generation here in the States. So my parents actually went into business on their own. So they had their own small business as well. My dad for 35 years. So there was a lot of good times when business was good. And there was also those times when you heard the conversation, that was a little bit more hush hush, but you could hear it as you continue to grow. So in the school environment, it was always a struggle because I was, learning the second language. I was born here, but basically spoke mostly Spanish in the household. And then at home, you saw late nights, my father coming in, and then obviously like I said, there was good times because pretty much they would give me whatever I wanted. I was firstborn, so I kind of got spoiled. And then as the family kept growing, because we're a family of five, and business wasn't as good, you could hear those conversations that weren't as optimistic, right? Those worries, those concerns that any small business owner, you know, unfortunately sometimes has to encounter. So it was a good life, and it was a real life in a sense. I played a lot of sports when I was a child, and then obviously in high school, um, you know, did fairly well there, athletically wise. CIF championship, Dave varsity my first freshman year, along with two other comrades. So that was a good time in life. That's kind of the episode that you're talking about, that younger life of mine, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Hopefully, I've been able to share what you were looking for there, Chris.
Yeah, for sure, most definitely. I think the reason I ask some of these questions is sort of it gets people's gives people perspective on where you're coming from. Later on your entrepreneurial journey. A lot of what I've noticed is I have not, like I mentioned to you, you're my 16th interview.
Uh-huh.
I have not found a single commonality in like the background of a person, in what how they take that and figure it out to succeed and become an entrepreneur. I've had guests who were from perfect family scenarios, I mean, born here, had a great life, and then they came out and are doing great things in the community and in business. I've had guests where they they were like foster care, like really rough life, and they're still coming out doing a lot of great things. So like because for me, I was curious in finding out, like, oh, maybe in my life, what is it that kind of led me to where I am today. So being able to ask those questions for entrepreneurs such as yourself kind of helps me and helps our audience a little bit more into, like I said, an insight into who you are as a person prior to who you are that they would know today.
Understood. Definitely.
When you were a child, did you have like a dream career? You were in sports a lot. You had a good childhood. Your parents, came here, right? They were doing business. Did you think of a dream career or a dream job as a child?
So I would say a dream career, not a dream job. So back in the day when I was a kid, I grew up with MTV. So MTV was one of the first video, music channels out there. So I wanted to be a professional dancer. Is what I wanted to be.
Wow.
Now,
Okay.
not leotards, but basically more like in the break dancing or basically the modern dancing. So I wanted to be a dancer. That's what I wanted to be. That's where I felt my creativity. I felt happy. Obviously, when you're dancing, who doesn't, you know, have that happiness feeling? I really enjoyed that. So that was what I was aspiring for when I was allowed to dream. but
That's
then,
fascinating.
but then life happened.
That's fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing that. I haven't
Sure.
had that. I haven't had that before. I think that says a lot. You being able to solve puzzles, basically fitting yourself in any situation, kind of that creativity from that dancing background that you had, sort of you're fitting that in and being able to dance around. Probably a lot of objections being in sales, right? Being able to dance around,
Yeah.
figuring it out because whenever you walk into a situation, you walk into a potential client, like you said, like they're always thinking like, what's in it for you? Like you're here to sell me, so automatically like, oh, I have a wall up. But realistically, you're just trying to figure out that with that dance on how I can really help you, and that's really that's very very fascinating as a like um like a thing that I didn't realize that you were into.
Yeah, funny, Chris. I never related it that way, but I do see that because there have been times when I make a comment that when I'm actually in a environment, let's say that I'm not familiar with, and I'm having to adapt at that moment, I've always referred to it as I'm tap dancing through the situation. I'm always, that's funny enough. I just kind of put those things together. But yeah, that's the way I've always referred to it. Is I'm kind of tap dancing around that situation. I'm trying to make it work for both parties, where it has a nice, flow for both parties. And obviously, in sales, a lot of times you are performing not necessarily to, you know, entertain the person, but more so basically to engage the person, to actually bring them into a conversation that actually has something tangible and identify those needs that they really have, because that's really what I'm always searching for is, do you have a need? And I don't like to try to fit like a square into a circle. I do try to fit the right service or product that is going to provide them the right fit. I've been through companies where we try to do that, and it's not a good fit. All it's going to be is churn in regards to that client. They're not going to be, a long term client. I look for that longevity with our customers to make sure that we're doing the right thing for the long term.
Gotcha, gotcha. I just wanted to, for our listeners who don't understand what churn is, in the cloud software, sales space, this is when people cancel, right? The amount of cancellations that you get. So for you, because you work in volumes, especially, in the transactional type of business, there's a lot of churn. That means there's a lot of cancellation if you don't sell them in the right way, if you're not able to identify the proper need. And I think that's the most important thing. Sales and marketing get a bad rap sometimes and being like sleazy or like, oh, I'm just trying to convince me to go with you to take my money instead of mine. But realistically, if done correctly, no, it's taking you from a place of pain to a place of like, happiness or joy, and just figuring out that right solution basically that fits your particular need in business.
Yeah, well said, Chris.
In when you were a child, like you said, like you mentioned, first generation here, you're going to school. ESL was something that you had to go through because you're trying to learn the language, of course. Did you like school, or did you have any particular favorite subjects or least favorite subjects for that matter?
So elementary, who doesn't love going to school, right? You're going, playing, having a good time. So I do remember a lot of good, fond memories there. Uh, Middle years, there was a little bit of movement, kind of relocating as a family. So middle years are troublesome for, I'm imagining for today's youth, so much more. But even back then, it was, a little bit of challenging, right? Trying to fit in, make sure you have like the right look, fit in with the right crowd. High school, uh, I always called high school basically like a chicken feed. It's just like when you feed chickens. you throw the chicken feed here, and then boom, everybody flocks. And then what I mean by that is obviously you had the popular kids, and everyone kind of flocked around the popular kids. So I had a chance to see all that. I did enjoy school regardless, but the truth is, I think in any school, as a young kid, young lady, young man comes up, there's so many personal things that they keep within themselves. And even me as a parent, I come to find things out that my son was being challenged with. And yet, I'm here in Chino Hills, great community, love the community, very friendly environment. But even he had some challenges as he went through. And I'm only discovering that now after college when we're sitting down at a dinner table and my wife is asking, son, tell me something I don't know about you. And then now he feels comfortable to share. And I look at her and she looks at me and I'm like, wow, how did we miss that? You know? So I think as people, we learn to adapt and we keep a lot of things on the cover looking good. But there is things going on inside of us all along, the fear, the anxiety, whatever it might be. And I think a lot of the entrepreneurship comes in the fact that you become resilient or more willing to go ahead and actually put yourself out there a little bit more. So I enjoyed life then, and I enjoy it now, and I want to continue enjoying what's up and coming in the future.
Fantastic. Was there something in your childhood that when you kind of look back at now, you would feel that it led you to where you are today?
I would say yes. At 17 years old, my father, again, having his own business, I had been working in the shop, and so he one of the few times that he told me no, and that question that I asked him as I looked out the window at the front door of our small business, and then I came back to him and I said, "Hey, Dad, I have an idea how I can grow the business." And my father said, "Son, this is my business." And I said, "Oh." What happened there internally for me was like, okay, well, he's not going to let me grow here. It's the first time he's really told me no. And so at that point, basically, I went to go work. Let's say that started my corporate America type, for the next 30 years. However, that seed of that want to be able to actually do something where I saw a need and not being able to actually put it into practice, I think that little seed stayed there. Now, mind you, younger than that, I was actually had two bike routes and delivered newspaper. So always had a good, strong work ethic since a young child. And but I really reflect back to that one episode at the door of my father's business when he told me, "No, this is my business." It just planted that seed, like, you know what, I can't have it, so I got to go. But I reverted back to it at a later time in my life.
That's fascinating. I think we've had that conversation offline when you're sharing that. I think that says a lot about you as a person because sometimes, I would say in today's environment, the way I see it, a lot of times, these there's a lot of small slights that happen in our life that we take negatively. But for you, it planted that seed in you that led you to where you are today because you didn't take it like, oh, my dad doesn't want me, my dad doesn't love me, my dad is like rejecting me, and for all these reasons he's putting you in a path that you didn't realize. Now looking back at it, it's like, oh, like thank you for not pulling me into your business and making me work because I've spoken to a lot of entrepreneurs, even myself. Like, I'm always trying to figure out how to bring my son into my business, right? I mean, he's 14 now, my oldest. I'm trying to figure, hey, there's something that you do, but sometimes maybe he doesn't. This is not the right thing for him or her, right? It allowed you to kind of blossom into your own thing, and you're successful now. So it was the right thing for that moment, which probably at that time it didn't seem like it.
I still feel, honestly, that I could have done so much. And let me expand on that. Okay, so
Please.
I think even today when I reflect, what it did teach me is that as I reflect back on that moment, what we did in the auto industry was actually reupholster vehicles. And so what that means is that today you have seat covers that go on a car. Back in the day, you would have convertible tops that need to be replaced because they sun dried and the back glass, you need to replace it. That would be one aspect of it. Or the inside, the carpets need to be replaced because they're worn and they have holes underneath the driver's seat. So we would replace the carpets. We would do the same thing for the seats, completely undo them and then redo them. Even if they had airbags, we would still do it. So what I had envisioned was, okay, we were already de-gutting the car. Why not tint the windows? Why not actually roll wire into the audio and put speakers? Remember, it was back in the 80s. Basically, you had uh, pop music that was really popular, obviously rap that was really popular, and who didn't want to put audio equipment in there? So I was looking at diversifying the business and putting two more actual products or services that we could offer that aligned really well with the business. So when I go back and think of my son, he says, "You know how to see a puzzle." I could see that coming, and in regards to that, I said, "You know what? Let's put this together." I think if my dad would have allowed me, I really do think there's a group out in Orange County called Salinas Tires. Very, very profitable business. They have multiple franchise locations. I see that that could have taken place. I personally think that my dad kind of held me back, but God knows best. The path that I do have allowed me to have, the living here in Chino Hills in the sense of corporate. I have my son. I met my wife. It would have gone a completely different way if it wasn't that route. So I just have to listen to what God basically is always teaching. Just follow. He knows the plan. I don't. I just got to follow.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. It's so fascinating. I think in life, we all go through something, not exactly what you went through, but in our own little way, similar situations where we want to go this direction and we think that this is the right direction to go. And then, life has a way of, the great architect of the universe. He's the architect. He's architecting all of our lives so that it can fit into a bigger picture that we have no capacity to see.
Sure.
Right. That's because we're small little dots in the overall grand scheme of things, I would say. So being able to like let life happen sometimes is not easy, but sometimes you have to you have to let it be. You just have to let it happen in a
Yeah.
way.
And you talked about basically the passion. So if I could just share a little bit, it
Please.
has put me in a place where I have corporate structure. Work for insurance companies like USAA. Insures the military. I managed 95 collision centers here in Southern California market, literally from LA to basically San Diego, all of Inland Empire. That was what I managed for them. So I got a chance to see that corporate structure, and I understand the small business. The good times and the bad times. Today, I'm able to actually put that together into a small business owner to be able to actually help. My drive, like I said, is to leave the business in a better position to be able to scale and grow. I still have that ambition for my business partners when I ask them those questions. What is your goal? And sometimes they're not ready for that question in the sense of what they really want to do. They're living on a daily lifestyle, right? In regards to the business. But if they're looking to expand, then I give them kind of like a quick snapshot of what they can look like and what kind of things they need to put in place. Um, and again, there's different service and products that can put them on the right path to go that. But if it's just to sell, okay, no problem. Let's build a CRM list. Let's go ahead and get things ready for when you are looking for that assessment of your business, that you actually have certain things in place. So you could say, here's my assets, and you guys are being able to actually do the transfer to your business. Take more control of your marketing, take more control of your customer list, and show how marketing can actually work for you to grow, and how you've used it so that when you sell the business, you can tell the next buyer, look, I'm giving you the keys to my business, but it has a built system in place. It's organized, it's ready to go. So, and sometimes life has emergencies like that. So you can't really say I'm going to sell it in 2 years. You got to be ready to sell today if that's really what you want.
Wow, that's very, very insightful and fascinating for all of us entrepreneurs being able to think of, like you mentioned earlier, your exit strategy. You have to be prepared for that exit strategy at any point in time. I think you have, I forgot who said it, like start with the end in mind.
Hmm. Definitely.
In one book that I read some years past. Well, now that we've gotten to know your story a little bit more, are you ready to go deeper?
Okay, let's go. I'm enjoying this.
Let's take this conversation behind the alleys and go deeper.
So, what does being a local Main Street entrepreneur mean to you?
Definitely collaboration. Local in the sense that you're working with others. Hence, obviously, the Chino Valley Chamber, Chris, where I had a chance to meet you. Um, Great activity that's going on with the community. How when you come into the actual sessions, be it online on Zoom or present, you're seeing the networking that's happening with the intention of, hey, here's what my business does, here's what your business does. Where do we kind of help each other out? We're both facing the same environment, but how can we help each other to give more value to the community, right? So I love that, and I can't be that for everyone, but I could definitely be there to support. I think just this week, obviously, we went to go support a local business here in the community. So being involved, definitely something that I think any entrepreneur needs to know. And the reason is that with COVID, obviously, it kind of locked us in here. And by not experiencing those things out in the real world, we're missing little golden nuggets that others are sharing, or missing opportunities that if we get involved, it'll actually open another door for us. And so I really want to hopefully focus on that in regards to collaboration and supporting the local community.
Gotcha, gotcha. That's definitely great that you unpack that for our listeners and for me as well. Collaboration is definitely a key to any business. I think we sometimes, especially in the online business space, like software, technology space, we kind of lock ourselves in a garage and try to build, 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 build. But you lose the sight of the connections that you will need to create to be able to make your product or service better, because it's really not for you, it's really for the people that you're serving. And being able to collaborate, like us, in the chamber, and a lot of the different businesses, we all are able to pick from each other's brains and stuff like that to make ourselves better. Because we're not working, a lot of us are doing this business, from home and things of that nature. We are sort of our coworkers in a way.
Yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. I agree.
As a child, your dad was, had a business, your family had a business. When was it that you first became yourself interested in becoming an entrepreneur? Was it that time when you wanted to pitch your dad, that pivoting moment from, what he was doing with this business, and you wanted to do that? Or did it come as an earlier age?
So I would say that we're gonna move into like the later years. So I'm gonna say right about 28. I've been
Okay.
working now for a corporation, and obviously there's a lot of structure there. So my son is now going to be born, and one of the things that my wife asked me, she said, "Hey, if we're gonna do this," she said, "I want to feel secure," and I think every family wants to have that security. So what she asked me for was to allow my paycheck to go into her checking account so that she could feel secure. So I'm like, wait, what? You want all my finances to go into your bank account? So I felt like, okay, okay, yes, I want our family. Yes, I want us to feel secure. I want you to feel secure and feel safe. So that moment there, I said, okay, well, I gotta, Annie, I gotta do something to have my own income outside of take care of the family. And so that began the process of self-development, looking for how can I do this, how can I actually now take care of corporate, but then start actually finding an avenue how to create additional income. I didn't need a lot, I just wanted my security, right? Well, what if I lose my job? How am I going to be able to do that, to have another income that I can rely on? So that's really where I felt that fork started for real this time.
Gotcha. Absolutely. I think a lot of our some of our listeners may be doing this on the side. Like for you, you figured out you want a side hustle so that you can supplement your income, and hopefully in the future build it into something that can replenish or replace that source of corporate income, right? And I think that some of our listeners would take inspiration from that. Like, if you don't have to necessarily just stop everything that you're doing and pivot automatically into just doing business 100%. Sometimes our life is not provisioned for that type of move. Sometimes you have to take that step. Like for you, you're expecting a child. Having that moment, it's quite, it gets your nerves racked a little bit, right? Because you're going to be caring for a human being now, being responsible, that has no other recourse but for you to support them. And I think as a father, the first time that's happening, it's nerve wracking, because like, oh my god, like I need to be able to come up with something other than, like you said, what I have, putting food on the table and keeping a roof over our head. So, which is a fascinating thing to be able to kind of realize at that point. Um, who or were was there a specific at that time? I know your dad, and your family did business, but was there a specific entrepreneur influence in your life at that point that made you like, hey, look into, because other people that would be in that situation, I've talked to a lot of them before, and they would say, let me go find a second job, not necessarily find a side hustle for a long-term entrepreneurship journey, but more like, oh, let me get a part-time second job. So was there a specific entrepreneur influence in your life at that time that sort of led you into making this pivotal decision?
So I'm going to date myself. At that time is when AOL was big.
Mhm. I
So that's a
remember
long time ago. I can't
CDs.
I can't believe some people. Yes, yes. I can't believe basically some people still have an AOL email address today, which I'm like, no, 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 you got to get away from that. But the reason I mentioned that is I'm talking about basically the internet, right? So the internet really was where I could find that time to kind of start researching. Obviously, the self development part really, I became a hunter for knowledge. I wouldn't say it was any one particular person. I think it was more that that lone shark that kind of basically is looking for it, hunting, trying to figure it out. So at that time in life, no, there wasn't anybody that I could. No one thought like me in a sense. No one thought about other than, hey, just clock in, clock out. And I was the one that was kind of like the oddball out. Why would you want to do that? You can't do that. Kind of that negativity was coming from family and friends. So it's kind of like something you just have to kind of push through and seek that knowledge. So I started investing in buying this in regards to a product for knowledge or maybe a system in place. Um, Google obviously was barely kind of coming out at that time too, and so I recall when I saw Google Maps for the first time, I went to a florist that was local to my dad's business, and I said, "Hey, I can put you on the map." And no one understood the power of basically GMB, which is Google My Business, or the power of basically Google Maps, what we see today. But I did see it at that time, and I tried to get that florist to pay me something to put her on Google Maps, but no one knew what that was yet. You know, today people say, "Hey, just Google it," right? But at that time, no one knew what Google was. So I did see that. So I love the digital world from that time frame forward, and over time till now I've invested over $100,000 in you know my product knowledge, my service knowledge, groups that I've gone to actually meet with and mentor with, San Diego, San Francisco, Las Vegas, gone to Florida to seek other individuals that are doing really well in, let's say, in digital marketing, to continue to kind of ante up, right? I mean, people know the saying, hey, if you're the smartest person in the room, you shouldn't be in the room, right? So I'm always looking to kind of look for collaborations and continue to grow my insight. And that's what I love about developers and people who actually know how to code, is there's a lot of great innovation that's happening specifically now in the SaaS, which is software as a service, industry. And certain products are really really good, and there's other products that you need to watch out for because maybe it's not the right fit in the sense of spending that much time and investment into. So I've always found myself to be really resourceful in finding things and then kind of vetting them, so to say. I don't know how I got off on that tangent. Hopefully I didn't go down a rabbit hole, Chris.
No, no, no. It's fascinating because yeah, you're right. Because at that time, I was for me, I was lucky enough that I started my career, like in the dot com time, the 2000s. This was where a lot of these resources were already available. So I found that like, man, it was so easy because like you talk to family members at that time, it's like, what are you doing? You're like, I think I was 16 or 17 at the time. I did. I did my first web development project. As I was learning, I got a client from Alaska sending me a good chunk of money to work on a .com project. Like he was trying to build the first live search engine, like that, like Google basically, but instead of our search result, you'll get experts. And then that you can kind of talk to, and then they charge you like a per, I don't know, I forgot what it was, like I think per minute fee at that time. When giving your credit card at this moment in time was still pretty scary at that point, right? But I found it super easy, like with all the resources that were there. This was a time also, for you, probably, like you're trying to do this, you're going down this rabbit hole and researching and stuff like that. Fast forward to today, there's plenty of reasons where people can figure out a business to start, like online, and because the resources are already there. And like I said, I was fortunate enough to be at that time when all of this stuff was just exploding. I mean, I remember Google was just the search result engine of Yahoo. It wasn't its own thing, right? It would just say Yahoo. You would go to Yahoo search, and then it says result provided by or presented by Google or something like that. At that time, you had like Lycos, you had a lot of different browsers at that point. Like everybody was trying to come up with their own browser. Um, for you to use as a search engine. And you bring up a great point, doing like SEO at that point. Like that's when I one of the things that I first dabbled into was SEO. Like super easy to get people listed on the first page. There's not much value because not a lot of people are searching at that point like they do now, but getting
Sure.
somebody over there. I remember in Pasadena, I bought a bunch of domain names, right? Like Pasadena Dentist and stuff like that. And it was easy because if the domain matched the keyword, you would rank number one. And I was renting this for like $100 a month, right? Because businesses, like, you have these people charging thousands of dollars for SEO. It's like, forget that. I already have a website. I'm just gonna reskin it for your business, and I'm just gonna funnel the traffic to you. And like, hey, everybody did it. And of course, Google changed their algorithm, and that doesn't work anymore. And then you got to pivot again and change. So yeah, I totally align with what you're saying, that at that time, the resources that were available to us, it didn't necessarily needed to be a person, but you had Google to ask, and the whole world library of knowledge out there for you to kind of peruse and learn from.
Yeah, definitely. And I always call Google the Rubik's cube. Just when you think you have maybe three of the four sides figured out, it's like try it again.
So when was it that you left corporate and decided to go full time
Yeah,
in business?
yeah, definitely, definitely. So I had tried to run, a professional digital marketing company while still at the corporation, and it's like having two heads on your shoulder. It's just not possible. So I knew that I just wanted to split, um, but I was always still chasing within the corporate environment. That exceeds employee. Very difficult to do. As an employee to basically get exceeds. So two things kind of came in alignment. One, maybe more than two, but one of them was obviously that I finally was able to hit that goal in the sense of exceeds with USA, which is a very very hard thing to do. Again, it's a military company that just takes care of non-civilian uh, population. So CIA, FBI, basically. So really hard to actually manage for them, but very very smart company in the sense of how they actually uh, took care of things worldwide. Insurance for home, auto, and stuff was just one sector, and I just happened to manage that. But so I was finally able to reach that exceeds. At the same time, Reggie, which is actually part of the actual chamber at the Christian church that he actually pastored at, I came to him and I said, "Hey, I don't want to make this decision selfishly." Um, and I kind of shared with him what I was looking to do, and he said, "Do me a favor." He said, "I'll read this book by Robert Beeford. It's called Halftime." So that was timely. I kind of read it, and it's a good book to read. Um, Halftime kind of basically speaks to just exactly that. You're at this point in life, whatever point that is, and you're kind of looking at it during the halftime when you come into the locker room. You're kind of reassessing the first half of your life and maybe the second half. Where you want to be at. So that came into play, and then obviously was kind of done with the responsibilities in regards to my son. He just gone into college. We already had the budget to take care of that. So in regards to that, I said, okay, I think now's the time, and yeah, it happened that way. And I said, okay, I'm going full time here. So I went ahead and unleashed all the other guys that had the same position as I in the corporation. They're like, man, I wish I could do that. How are you doing it? And they had been with the company a lot longer than I was 11 years with that corporation, and some of them had 20, and they're like, I wish I could do that. So in regards to how are you doing this? I said, you know what, I'm taking a chance on something that I believe in, and you just have to sometimes just make that decision. to go ahead and actually move forward. There's no guarantee about anything other than the fact that, hey, you know what, it's time to work harder because in a corporation you're spoiled. You clock in, you clock out, you take care of the dailies, and I don't know. It's just wasn't for me. I was already trying to innovate things within the organization, but because there's a board of directors, and everything kept getting shut down in regards to thoughts and ideas of things that could make things better. Um, so that was the other thing that was happening, is that your ideas and stuff aren't being accepted, and I put all those things together, and I said, okay, now it's time. Let's go. And it hasn't been the easiest, but I'm happy. I'm comfortable where I'm at right now.
Fantastic. Well, you mentioned that journey when you decided to make that leap wasn't easy. Maybe you can unpack that a little bit. So today you wake up, you're no longer in the corporate structure. You're your own business. You're responsible for your future at this point without having to rely on a corporate structure. Like I said, how was that journey like? And kind of tell us a little bit more about that.
So waking up in the mornings, obviously having a plan, because it's not anymore we're going to pay you just for clocking in, clocking out. You really have to hustle. It is something that you have to take initiative and engage with what's needed. So that planning does come through obviously having coaches, to refine that process. It's important to have direction in regards to how are you going to build. So even myself, having that tolerant risk factor of doing things, still need some kind of guidance in regards to somebody else looking at it from a 10,000-mile view and saying, hey, you know what, if you continue on this path, then you should have these kind of results. And so having systems in place to be able to actually kind of push you along that path helps you to make sure you're having that daily activity to give you the end result. um, Not having that guarantee obviously encourages you to find ways to be more resilient and be able to actually be more resourceful. Um, and those wins come often, but when they do come, they're so much more enjoyable. When those wins come, when you're doing the right thing, it's just more fulfilling in a lot of ways, right? I mean, to be able to have those opportunities when your hard work is basically your harvest is coming in for the work that you put in. It's encouraging, um, and having that little trophy of being able to say, okay, the hard work is awesome. I mean, going back to like Bible references, obviously, in the Bible it reads about basically, plant your seed and basically the harvest will come. I mean, you just have to continuously diligently work it all the time. It's
Gotcha. Well, when you were throughout this journey, what were some of the challenges that you had to kind of overcome?
capital. Capital is always one of the hardest ones, right? So in regards to that, being resourceful, finding ways to go ahead and actually, if I knew how to grow a money tree, that's the first thing I would have done. So in regards to capital, it takes money to actually invest in your business and grow it. um, in regards to other things that can you repeat the question one more time, Chris, if you would?
Yeah, what were some of the challenges that you had faced when you were, starting out and kind of going through this journey?
Yeah, not having a plan. Obviously, just jumping in and kind of trying to figure it out. Uh, yeah, it takes a lot to actually grow a business. You definitely have to have the right partners in place too, right solutions to bring to market, and that takes planning. I may have done it a little bit more abruptly than some others, but at the same time, jumping in the water, you could be in the middle of the lake, and now you have to say, okay, which direction I'm going to go. Land is that way, this way, that way. I was trying to serve everyone, and in regards to trying to serve everyone, you didn't specialize in one thing, and so by not being specialized in one avenue, at least specifically for me, because technology and marketing, you could take care of anybody in regards to business, right? But when you actually are able to specialize, the nuances of that business and the pain points you're specifically trying to solve, and it becomes much easier at that point to provide them the right solution because you understand the business just as if you were the business owner. So taking that time to actually sit down and learn the business through the eyes of the business owner, through the eyes of the employees that work in that business, that time invested is going to serve you, 10 times in regards to how you're able to, one, build relationships, and two, have longevity with your clients.
Absolutely, that's very very fascinating that you had shared that. Being able to figure out who that target customer or that avatar is quite important for a lot of us in business, and sometimes it takes us a while to figure that out, and then being able to find a niche down into how to properly serve that individual market is, I think, one of the it's not easy to do
Hmm.
because, like you said, a lot of us want to serve everybody, and then it's hard to for us to make that pivotal decisions. Like, you know what, like yeah, I can serve everybody, but I shouldn't because I can specialize in actually making the biggest difference in this niche. And for you, it's the space that you work in now. I wanted to ask you, like, having a lot of experience both in corporate, um like you mentioned, after reading that halftime book, I think we talked about this at that lunch that we were in earlier, I mean, end of this week. um you're in your halftime, right? With all the experiences that you've had, what would you say in business and in life you would consider that's non-negotiable for you?
Yeah, good question. Um, Something that would be non-negotiable to me would be being able to not sleep good at night. Let me explain. So, if you don't do the right thing for your customer, at least me, I don't know about others, you're not going to be able to sleep at night. And having that peace of mind to be able to actually have a good night's rest because you're doing the right thing, you're putting things in the right places, you're making things better for others. And again, it's not always about winning. Sometimes it's about giving. And in regards to that, there's been many, many times when I've given something of a resource of mine for that business because it's what they needed, and it'll get them to a better place. I look at that basically being able to sleep at night because you've put the best effort into that day and you made the right decisions for growing your self-confidence and growing your actual uh, contribution back. Again, it's always going to go back that for that to me, in the sense of being able to help the business. For me, I sometimes I do the following, like my client, the one I recently took care of. We put hardware in his restaurant, and I'm always checking back. Hey, tell me, what are you seeing? You've now had a chance to experience it. What are you seeing that maybe has an opportunity? You know what? We had this, but in regards to that, once you were given that problem, let's say they shared an issue. For me, it's about working with the software company to make sure we look at that software and make sure, hey, is there something we can do to kind of adjust it? Remember, I told you about that square, right? But every business is different inside. So there's little tweaks and stuff. So by hearing those little things that are there, if you don't ask, it's almost like basically a sweater that's knitted comes across the rows and it just pulls that one little string, right? And the customer may not tell you. They may just say, "Oh, it's no big deal. I'll just clip it," but that string is still loose, and eventually it's going to come apart. So by doing that follow up, now it's more account management at that point. You've done the sale, you've basically put the product in service, you've solved the pain point, which were the things that everyone can see need to be resolved. But now you're in the process of using the system as a merchant, and maybe there's these little things. And now as an account manager, because I still think that a salesman should be that, provide the solution, but then be an account management where you're coming in, touching your account, and then making sure those little details are being cleaned up. And a lot of times it's a simple fix. I mean, technology is moving so fast today that if that same pain point is being expressed by multiple businesses, the solution's there, and maybe it just hasn't been communicated to the general population, or maybe it's a beta product that they're actually putting in place to solve that new issue. But if you learn from your existing clients, you're going to continue to improve that product. Even though it might not be my product, I become, again, the consultant, getting the feedback, feeding it back to them. They appreciate it as a developer. And again, limited resources that they have. But that's why capital venture companies come in and put money into these companies, because they're continuously evolving and solving problems. And it just comes back to market faster. You want to have the best product that's out there. Um, and you learn through your customer. Definitely. You learn
Ab-
through your customer.
fa- Fantastic. Yeah, you bring up a really good point. Sometimes a lot of these things just fester with the customers and clients that we do, and when we don't take care of them, they eventually churn. Right?
Yeah.
That's one of the things that happens because they don't feel that they're getting the service that they deserve, and that's why they chose you to provide that solution for them. Because if you did the needs analysis correctly, then they expect you to continue to keep doing that needs analysis to make sure that they're in tip top serviceable shape, basically.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah. And,
Uh,
you should
mm,
be thinking about your customer's customer,
mhm.
when you're actually selling a service or product or providing a solution. You should be thinking about their customer. What does their customer look for? And that's where sometimes the merchant can share that knowledge with you, and you're really now fitting the right product to that market. But yeah, no, I really am enjoying your show, Chris.
Oh, thank you. Really appreciate it. I
Yeah.
mean, you're giving us really really great golden nuggets that we can just apply to our business on a day-to-day life. So thank you for doing this. My next question is, what did you wish that you knew prior to taking the leap of being a full-time entrepreneur?
What I don't think you do know anything when you go in as an entrepreneur. I mean, it's uncharted territory. I mean, you're coming in to start something. Now, if I have a passion for something, you know, maybe you're going in a little bit blind. And I think of that, to me, what was my passion? My passion was obviously to grow something that would give me revenue. And so I jumped in blind. So at that point, I wish I maybe would have known exactly what I wanted to do. It was digital marketing, but maybe if I would have known to go specifically for one market, I think that's what I wish I would have known. It would have uh, 10x my, you know, growth in regards to the business. So maybe that's what I wish I would have known, to really know which customer I wanted to serve. But I don't know that anybody could have given it to me without, the trials and tribulations of trying different things, and always trying to self develop. I don't think I would have known who my customers until I had gone through that process. So I don't think that it's something that can just be handed to you.
You weren't stumped. You knew exactly what you were gonna eventually say. It just took you a little bit to figure that out and
Yeah.
be able to give that answer. And that was it. That was a great answer because it takes you sometimes, like a while, like you said, to figure out exactly what it is that you're trying to serve. You have a goal in mind of what you wanted to do, but to be able to manifest that goal sometimes takes it's a little bit tricky because you're your own boss. You're trying to figure out, hey, I need to make my money this month to be able to cover whatever my responsibilities are, and I have no other means but to be able to provide using this business that I confidently told my family that I'm going to get into full time, and then I'm not able to do it. It kind of gives added pressure to that, but that was fantastic. What would you say has been, throughout this entrepreneurial journey of yours, what has been the most important part of it that has kind of set you up to, going forward into these lessons of your entrepreneurial journey in life?
What's been the most important part is obviously willing to fail. In regards to
Mm,
that, willing to go ahead and actually take time to do an activity and learn from that activity. So I've always shared, specifically with my son, you know, you can learn one good thing from everyone you meet if you listen. So if you listen attentively, everyone can teach you one golden nugget. And if you're able to do that by being present and engaging with them, taking that golden nugget away in life is just going to serve you better. You know, I don't know who this gentleman was. I was traveling, and I was traveling a lot. But this gentleman was walking towards me, and as he was walking towards me, he smiled. And what he said was, "Leave, leave it better than the way you found it." Is what he said to me as he smiled and he walked past me. And I'm like, "Well, what? What did he say?" But obviously, that I could always see his face. I wish I would have had a chance to speak with them, but I mean, that was enough for me to actually take that away with me. And that is what I try to do, is basically just leave everything a little bit better than the way I found it. And yeah, that really is something that I've always tried to do in my life. So learn the golden nugget basically when you meet somebody, and leave it better than the way you found it. If you're able to give something of contribution back.
Fantastic. Well, if you could have one, just one superpower, what would it be? But before you answer that, let's take a quick break.
Okay.
Today's episode is brought to you by Thinkin' Local, a fundraising and giving-based marketing platform whose mission is to connect local Main Street businesses who care about making an impact in the local community with schools and nonprofits who believe in supporting their local businesses. Find out more by visiting local.com. And we're back, digging for gold on the Behind Main Street podcast.
So, Louis, if you could have just one superpower, what would it be?
So X-Men has basically a character called Multiple Man, and that would be cloning myself. And why I say that is that as an entrepreneur, you're trying to do so many things, and it's almost impossible. It really is sometimes impossible. But so cloning myself to be able to do 2 times or 3 times the activity that I currently do would be an amazing power to have.
Wow, that's fantastic. I mean, when I think of X-Men, I watched the Uncanny X-Men when I was growing up, right? That cartoon. I never really thought about multiple man. I was always like thinking about Gambit, right? Professor Xavier, Wolverine, of course. But that's great. Yeah, most definitely. That would be an amazing superpower for all entrepreneurs to have, because we're always, especially when you're a solopreneur in a way, like you need, you're not yet successful enough to be able to build a large team around you. So you're trying to wear so many hats, and then sometimes when you're wearing that hat, it's hard to take it off and put on the next one to be able to take care of some other things. So
Yeah.
absolutely, that's a great superpower. What would you say, in your opinion, is the most crucial personality trait that any entrepreneur needs to have to succeed?
Yeah, the willingness to fail, the willingness to expose yourself, and that alone, I think, will give you that learning opportunity to actually better yourself, and to obviously, along with that, in regards to being able to fail, it means that you're trying, and if you're trying, that means that you're actually engaging and helping others, with a product or service. And there's been times when obviously I put a product in place and it didn't work. So in regards to that willingness to go ahead and actually get that feedback, sometimes it's not the easiest thing, to get the feedback, straight, transparent feedback, and answering that call when it does come. Sometimes in regards to that, I could think of many times, and I relate this back to my insurance days. Uh, my position basically was to manage 95 collision centers. Those 95 collision centers had a responsibility to produce a really good product on a collision repair. Vehicles, you have domestic simple cars, and then you have exotic European, or basically Asian vehicles that are like with Lexus and stuff like that. And they're very meticulous. So when they failed at what they were hired to do by us giving them money to repair it, and they couldn't resolve it, they would call the collision center, and the customer would also call corporate. And then I would be involved to come in and actually mitigate and resolve that solution. And sometimes it meant, hey, collision center, we paid you X, you're going to redo this whole entire job, and you're not going to get paid a second time for it. You're going to get it done right, and you're going to put my customer in a better position in regards to extending that rental, doing these extra things, because it's all about customer service. So, and let's say they failed at that again. Now that consumer's looking at me going, hey, you know what? You failed me twice. I'm now going to take it to the state of California. And so in regards to mitigating that, it was not the easiest thing to take that call when you're depending on a resource to handle that for you. So very touchy situation. A lot of litigation can happen in that situation. But taking it back now to today, and as an entrepreneur, self-made businessmen, and in regards to that, it's being able to do the same thing. Make sure that the product you're putting in there, it may not go as smooth. And in regards to if you try to fit the wrong product in there, you're going to get those calls. So in regards to that, taking that call, resolving it, and just making do the right thing in regards to your merchant, taking care of that client.
Wow, absolutely. I think you what you brought up there is really important. In like I think in line with what you're doing today, it gives me kind of a lot more perspective. You coming in from the insurance perspective, having that corporate structure, being able to massage these. So, like right now, what you do in your business, you have a provider like a cloud software SaaS company that you're working with, and being able to make sure that that customer on the end is taken care of and be able to liaison both those sides, because a lot of times as a business owner, like you mentioned earlier, we're wearing so many hats. And if for a restaurant owner out there, they're trying to deal with their supply demand, their staffing issues and all these other things. And then if they had to worry about dealing with the SaaS company that's working on their POS, that's a whole nother thing that they would have to deal with. But being able to bring in a consultant like yourself who has the expertise and who has a lot of a breadth of business, that you can kind of throw your weight a little bit around, because you can say, well, I can easily switch these guys to a much better provider. So you're able to kind of give these restaurants a lot better of a solution than they would get in and of it just themselves.
And that obviously is an option always, but for referencing what you said, which is the point of sale, the point of sale typically is the heart of a restaurant because it handles everything and everything's centralized through it. Sometimes it's just negotiating that with the current provider to make sure maybe they look at it from the merchant's perspective. And by doing that, yes, you're having to walk through, division one customer service, division two customer service, maybe even perhaps, regional, to kind of get them to look at the big picture. Because just to give you a hypothetical, let's say the point of sale is there, the internet goes down, point of sale is dead, you have a full floor of customers that basically want to eat and want to pay for their food because they got to go. How do you solve that issue? I mean, it's friction like that. I mean, so having a solution in place to mitigate those situations, it may be something that you need to really quickly have something agile that can come in and solve it. It may not be the most smoothest thing to happen, but hey guys, you guys work on this, I'm working on this, which is live environment. They're working on whatever they need to do over there. And so you collaborate that teamwork versus basically being put on hold. Can you imagine? An hour goes
That
through.
would be
You have customers there.
lunchtime.
Restaurants are saying, "Hey, you know what? Just go. I'm sorry, just go." And what are they eating? I mean, they make maybe you know the profitable restaurants make maybe 35% margin on what they're selling. And in regards to that, to let that go, and now there's no margin. The cost of foods is all gone. Their customer experience wasn't the way it should have been. It's just sometimes companies don't see it that way. They see it a completely different way until kind of you peel back the onion and kind of let them see. And it doesn't always work as smooth as you want. But me, obviously, if I have to go there and figure it out, okay, you know what? Let's get in the car. Let's go. And let's figure this out together. Here, I have this. Let's make this thing just work. And having a good company can allow you to have those tools in place and be prepared for that.
Fascinating. I think that also lends itself to you niching down and figuring out what it is, the type of business that you're trying to serve, because you gives you a lot more experience and being able to learn about these, practical situations that do happen on a day-to-day basis, and you'll be able to kind of apply a solution that you did for another business when it happens to another one. You've experienced it before, and you can just kind of slip that solution in and be able to solve that problem and make it a better situation for that particular business.
Yes, definitely.
uh, what would you consider your biggest failure in business, and what was the lesson that you took away from that?
Hmm. Okay, my biggest failure in business would be that I put all my time and effort into one company, one solution, and thinking that that was going to be a good fit for everyone. Uh, where I was basically trying to again fit that square into that hole, right? So with that said, you can envision basically a circle, and it's you keep fitting that square in there. That square keeps getting those sides shaved, which eventually becomes a circle. which I mean, I'm very visual. So in regards to that, eventually what ended up happening is, you know what, you really want to be in the digital marketing world. You want to be omnipresent, kind of everywhere, have a solution everywhere, and as a consultant basically understand, hey, you know what, it's not always my product is going to fit here. Perhaps I can refer them to a partner, now going into collaborations with other resources, other individuals that have a stronger skill set in this area, and that makes for a stronger relationship with your merchant, that eventually someday you might be able to get a chance to work with them. But you're bringing a team of experts. So I don't try to be the one size fits all in the sense of me being the person providing the service. I try to be in, and you mentioned it earlier, building that team around you, where basically somebody else can actually come in and actually you can delegate that task to them. Hey, you're going to be a better fit for this customer. Let's work together and help this customer out. So hopefully, in a general way, I gave you that response back in a good way.
Yeah, absolutely. You absolutely did. If you could make one mistake, just one mistake over again, what would that be, and how would you do things a little bit differently this time around?
I crack up. I'm like, these are tough questions, Chris. Okay, if I can make one mistake over again, and I would be willing to do that mistake again,
Yeah.
what would it be?
And how
Okay,
would you do it differently? Maybe or maybe not differently.
yeah, yeah. Good question. If I had to do that again, I think I would have gone into business earlier. I think I would have maybe, reflecting back when my dad told me, no, this is my business, I think I would have accepted that he said no and just kind of stuck with it a little bit longer. I think if I could have been more persistent on that, eventually I would have been able to sway him and kind of move him forward with my vision. Spending more time kind of having more conversations with him, painting the picture. So I would revert back to that kid that I was 17 years old and sticking with it then, rather than kind of
God,
basically being selfish. So, okay, fine, I'm going to go. I'm going to go work for another person. Yeah,
gotcha, gotcha. So being more persistent in putting yourself out there and trying to solve that particular, because you see a pain point there, you
yeah,
saw it, and
yeah,
you knew that. I mean, now years later, the realization sets in. We're like, yeah, we could have definitely done this, and it would have taken from here like much in a much better place.
yeah,
And the persistence of being able to do that. Sometimes we do that. You and I and some other businesses that are in service type of business. Um, when we don't get a client, sometimes it's a disservice to that client because we know sometimes what solutions we could lay out for them to take them there, and then you see like a year or two down the road, and I've experienced that, and I've had clients come back and say, hey, like let's do what you told me like 2 years ago, and you almost want to tell them like, yeah, I told you this is what we should have done, but
sure.
you were set on the way you wanted to do it. But of course you can't do that because you're you're gonna lose that client if you like shove that in their face. But sometimes you feel that way, and I think, yeah, the persistence on providing your idea to them is
Chris, I like this part of the conversation right now because I am with a great product right now, and the traditional way of them, which is again a restaurant solving this particular digital online presence, let's say, is there. Just because you build a website doesn't necessarily mean it's going to function.
yeah,
And you have in your you know services basically design. And in regards to that, the design needs to be relooked at and make sure that you're actually doing the process. And you and I can relate to this in the sense of the top of the funnel and bringing it through the system, and then having a way to actually re-engage that customer and then bring them back. Many business owners today, they're like, no, I already have that. Well, you know what, you really need to sit down and actually let me kind of peel this back for you. What really do you have? Because what I see is this. And being able to get them isolated for, let's say, 15, 20 minutes, and be able to identify those pain points and then show your solution and how it's going to solve it. Let's say they see it, then at that point, it's basically, you know what, I don't know if I'm ready to make the investment. Um, but that right there alone, needs to be looked at by merchants more often. They need to be able to sit down and learn from others, because I think any business owner, in hindsight, looks back and looks at, hey, I should have implemented this then, and maybe it's too late now. But individuals like yourself, or let's say me, we're there to help. We're there to give you insights. And today may not be the right time, but at least you're educated and you start thinking about it, and then you get closer to actually putting these things in play. Um, yeah. So
Yeah,
great talk.
absolutely.
Great talk. I love it, Chris.
Yeah, most definitely. I think us, because we're sort of share some of the spaces that we do. It's fascinating to have this conversation because there's a lot of alignment in the way we're thinking about things and some of the experiences that we've had in dealing with certain clients, certain businesses, and a lot of times you come in there, they're not ready. We have all these plans to be able to implement for them. It's not that they're not ready as an individual, but they have a whole business process, or their whole infrastructure is not provisioned to be able to do these things. Like because a lot of it, when you're in the transactional business, a lot of it is just focusing on getting new customer, getting new customer, getting new customer. And I've always said that to a lot of my clients and potential clients, is like, it's a lot cheaper for you to re-engage those existing clients. And mentioned this as part of your solution, is really re-engaging these people. It's a lot cheaper because the most expensive cost of your marketing is the first acquisition, the customer acquisition. But when you re-engage with these customers, they will not only um, possibly increase the amount of spend that they do with you, but also increase the amount of times that they go and spend with you. And if once you've taken care of them enough, they'll be advocates for you to bring in other people that you don't have to pay for again
Yeah.
as a customer acquisition cost. So being able to build that funnel and thinking about it is drawing that journey for them. That buyer's journey is a lot of times a lot of businesses never ever consider. And sometimes it's like pulling teeth trying to get them to think a certain way because they've done their business a certain way and they're successful already. But you could see, like you with your dad, like you're successful here, but if you just take these small little steps, you could like go from A to Z like so much faster and so much more efficiently. So yeah, it's this conversation is so amazing and fascinating to be talking to someone that's in the same mindset as that.
We're gonna be best friends forever, Chris.
Yeah, for sure. I know. Like, I'm gonna like, hey, don't believe me? Here's Lewis. Go call him. Like, just talk to him. If you don't want to use my service, go to him. Like, just talk to him. Like, maybe the way I am, you don't like it, but you'll like him. So one of us will figure this out for you at one point or another.
It's an awesome show. I love it.
Is there someone or something that you as a business owner turn to when you feel stuck?
Yeah. Yeah. So definitely one thing for me personally, is running. Um, it might just be at the treadmill, but somehow I don't know what happens inside my body when I start running. I, I started allowing my mind to relax a little bit, and I started thinking a little bit more clear, and it gives me opportunity to kind of bring that to fruition in the sense of the clarity. I don't know what it is; it just happens for me. The second thing that could happen, let's say I can't get my thoughts cleaned up in my mind in regards to that one specific focus, would be to engage at that time with Audible on a specific topic, from specific people, or a group of people, and listen to recordings, and as listening through their process, what they've experienced and things like that, very similar to what we're doing. You pick up that one little golden nugget and you're like, oh my gosh, okay, you know what, how come I didn't see that? Oh, that's a great way to look at it. Or maybe I should try this. I haven't ever seen this before. But they give you insight. There's so many people that are willing to share, um, really, really good information that any entrepreneur could use going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, today, what drives you just to pile through and keep going when the going gets tough?
Well, one is obviously the family, right? So,
Mhm.
and then the second thing is obviously to know that there will be a difference because I'm actually out there. doing what I do. But really, when you look back at it, it's basically the family. So um, I want for my son and obviously my wife and my brothers and sisters, although they've seen struggle, to be able to say, you know what, when I die, to be able to say, hey, you know what, at least he tried and he had some success, and to be able to see people actually, hopefully, I'm building friendships out there with other business owners, to be able to see, you know, people come together and say, hey, you know what, he did make an impact in regards to the little things he did, just because of the friendship. So that is something I'm really trying to build, is basically more relationships and show people that we can make just a little bit of a difference.
Fantastic. What has been your biggest aha moment in life?
That it's okay to fail. um, and not necessarily take that in a negative way. More so just approach it in a different way. The 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 opportunity to learn through trial and error has been a great experience in the area of actually growing my self confidence. So it's not as hard as you might imagine it to be in your mind. It's not that hard. It's funny that when you try, even though you think you're going to fail, you actually succeed, and you're like, okay, wait, that was not that hard. Let's do it again. It actually works in the sense, solution that you're putting in place. And then at the same time, basically, there are sometimes when you come across certain solutions that aren't giving you the outcome you're looking for. And that aha moment of saying, hey, you know what, I need to bring somebody else in to actually consult me on this, and they give you insight. So there's a lot of ahas there. I really couldn't put it into one, particular situation. But again, that willingness to fail, that willingness to learn through the experience, and that willingness to bring people in, to pay them for their services, to come in and actually give you a little bit of consultation. That's been my biggest aha for me.
That's great. I mean, I think I found it, like I said, in the multiple interviews that I've had in this show, failure is sort of that common theme that everybody brings up. Learning to fail, failing faster, learning to fail forward, things of that nature is sort of a common thread that I've heard throughout all these different episodes. And I think I'm going to hear about it more and more as I do these interviews, because that's one of the biggest things. Like, I think as kids, we're always afraid to fail because we're always taught, like, I don't know, at a certain age, we're little kids when we're learning to walk, right? Like, okay, you can do it. You get the encouragement. But I don't know, there's some point in our life, like, I don't know what age that is, when you start getting, hey, don't stop doing that. Hey, don't do it this way because you're gonna get there. So then our brains start getting taught to, like, oh, hold on, like, let me think before I do, which you need to do, but at the same time, not being afraid of that end result afterwards is, it's not easy to kind of break through. There's a great book, I think I mentioned it to one of the other guests, by John Maxwell's, Failing Forward.
Hmm.
Fail your way to the top. Being able to just, if you know that at the 100th or 101st time you're going to succeed, guaranteed, you get to those 99 or 100 failures as fast as possible, if you knew that already. So that's one of, like I said, this is a common thing. So thank you for kind of reiterating that without knowing what my other guests have said in the past.
Sure, definitely.
Well, if you could talk to, now having a little bit of insight, your dad said no to you at around that 17-year-old time. If you could talk to your 18-year-old self today, what advice would you give him?
Yeah, definitely. If I could talk to my 18-year-old self, what advice would I give him? Again, try doing what you believe in. I mean, it goes back to passion, right? The passion for me was to find a way alternative to the corporate way. And it wasn't necessarily that I wanted to leave corporate, because obviously you like the fact that it's taking care of your family, but it was to find a way to go ahead and actually find another avenue. Obviously, when you invest, they tell you diversify, right? So I would tell myself at 18, hey, try more things. I look back at talking to my son, in regards to that, I did try to specialize him in, let's say, one sport. And I reflect back at an older age and look back and say, you know what, I should have had him try piano, music. I should have had him try X and X and whatever, right? Um, I, I I would say basically try to take a look at more things and see, what it is you like. There's a lot to be said in regards to your passion. At the same time, when you pursue your passion, and in regards to that particular passion, it'll get you to adventure and try things, which is good. But as an entrepreneur, you have to also learn that just because you have a passion of something doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a success. And in that pursuit of your passion, be paying attention to everything you're coming across. And like we referenced earlier, Chris, find that one little problem and then niche in to what that problem is that you can solve, because you're actually taking your passion to find you down that route. So
Uh,
I would tell my 18-year self, try more things, you know, go and explore, do things more.
that's great advice. That's great advice. Well, as an entrepreneur, what is your favorite? Wearing many hats. What is your favorite productivity hack?
My productivity hat. Woof. Wow. I wish I had that down. I mean, but productivity wise, sometimes just take the first step forward. Just engage in the activity. Sometimes we can get stuck in the thought process of trying to be too perfect. So, I would say, just if you have the idea, you think you know what the results should be, just engage with it and let it happen. Meaning take the activity to do it. And in that process, you're actually going to be able to refine it and clean it up, which will become more consistent result that you're getting out of that. So there's been times when I actually have an idea, I'm thinking through it, and I stay there. I get stuck.
Mhm.
And so by not taking actually activity on it, I'm still here when I should have been over here. So the productivity hack that I've tried to, embed in myself is, okay, you have the idea. Now let's go execute on it and we'll learn through the process. So just just do it. I guess is the easiest way to say
Nike.
it.
Well,
Just
if three wishes today were granted to you, what would you wish for?
three wishes. I guess more time. Obviously, we all have a limited amount of time, so more time would be one of them. In regards to more wisdom, having a little bit more knowledge in a specific area would be how to work with others in the sense of business owners. Just more wisdom to be more patient, to listen better. And in regards to the third wish, again, I'm going to go back to the fact that obviously capital helps you scale growth and be able to actually grow faster. So yeah, I guess those would be the three wishes that I would look for.
Gotcha. Can you recommend three books for our audience that has helped you?
Yeah, there's a good book, and it has nothing to do with, let's say, sales, but basically it's called Story Brand. There's an author, his name is Donald Miller, and any business owner should actually take the time to listen to Donald Miller in regards to Story Brand. It helps you focus in regards to what's your message out there. It really helps an entrepreneur kind of also think about basically who is my customer, because you're talking to one audience. I too do like two books by Jeb Blunt. Sales EQ is one of them. That speaks more to the fact of, as a consultant salesperson, uh, having that smartness about, basically how to approach that process of discovery and that engagement with the customer. Fanatical prospecting, obviously always looking for ways to continue to grow and scale. And again, both those books are by Jeb Blunt.
Um, now what are you looking forward to most? Your future in your entrepreneurial journey.
Yeah, I have a 5-year goal, and I have a 3-year goal. Um, right now, I want to be able to fulfill that 3-year goal. Obviously, with COVID, it kind of basically took, let's say, one of those years away from me. So now it's two. But I still want to stay focused on the 2-year goal. They have to do, obviously, with stability and financial stuff that I want. my wife's going to retire soon, and in regards to that, I want to be able to actually give her the peace of mind that, let's say, she was looking for. Again, that security piece. My whole thing is about her being able to sleep comfortable at night and be able to enjoy what our next 10 years, if we're blessed enough to have, uh, could be enjoyable. I really want to be able to enjoy life and just be able to live a little bit more in the sense of just being in the daily grind. I mean, we do have thoughts of being able to move out of California, but still have real estate in California, um, just because it's a great state. But I do want to travel a little bit more and maybe live in other areas of the country or possibly outside the country. That would be my goal. So I want to position myself by my 5 years to be ready to do that.
Is there any question that you wish I'd asked you that I didn't get a chance to?
In regards to this, honestly, I really enjoyed the podcast. I would love to basically find other ways to collaborate with you and obviously the team that you have behind you. I think I can learn a lot from you, Chris. So I guess what I wish you would ask is when are we going to have lunch?
Soon, very, very soon. In the next coming week. Absolutely. I'd love to pick your brain more like on the business side and kind of see how we can collaborate more and being able to bring some of the other clients that I work with and stuff like that I could just find so much value in what you could be able to bring to them as well. So I'm excited to be able to do that. Well, in closing, what is one piece of practical advice that you can share with our listeners in their entrepreneurial journey?
Believe in yourself. In regards to that, you do believe in yourself, but in regards to that, just be willing to step outside the box. The, God gave you a vision, and in regards to that, you have a talent. Um, just take that step and be willing to go ahead and actually reach out to others that perhaps maybe have some insight. Maybe it's not in the same industry, but just be willing to believe in yourself and have confidence to move forward, even in an imperfect, stage. Just take that first step. I think that you're going to go a long way taking the activity sooner than later.
Wonderful advice. Where can listeners learn more about you and your business?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm on LinkedIn, Louis Ramirez. And also, you can find me at bringmoreclients.com.
I love that. Well, thank you so much, Louis, for being such a great guest on the show. I really, really enjoyed this and for giving me and our listeners actionable, practical gold nuggets that we can apply to our business. I invite our listeners to please connect with Louis for all your digital payment needs. And if you want to turn more first time customers into regulars. Also, please do connect with me if you'd like to be a guest on the show or want to suggest a guest. Also, please do share, subscribe, leave a rating, review. I would very much appreciate your honest feedback, which helps me continually provide impactful content that I hope you will find valuable. And always remember, every day that you face adversity, think of it as an opportunity to find the gold inside you. Until next time, have a success filled day.
Thanks for listening to the Behind Main Street podcast. If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review. Remember to visit www.behindmainstreet.com.